Have you ever felt like you were in the middle of a silent whirlwind, where everything around you seems still, but inside you, something screams? A spiritual restlessness that insists on waking you up in the middle of the night, even without knowing why? Maybe you think it's anxiety, exhaustion, but what if I told you that this discomfort could actually be the soft sound of the heavenly call? There are times in life when God does not speak with thunder, but with silence. Times when everything seems to go wrong. Doors close, plans fail, and you start to question, has God forgotten about me? But maybe, just maybe, God is about to choose you for the biggest turnaround in your life, and it's all part of God's process. Before we dive into this universe of self-knowledge, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like it, and activate notifications. This way, you can ensure that you are always connected to content that inspires and transforms. Let's join us. In this video, we'll explore 3 profound spiritual signs that may indicate you're being set apart for something great. And this is no exaggeration. Many who are living their divine purpose today have experienced these very moments of pain, silence, and new beginnings. As C.S. Lewis would say, God whispers in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. If you have ever felt that you are experiencing something that you cannot explain, that there is a greater force aligning your steps in silence, even without understanding, then stay here with me. Maybe this is the confirmation that your soul has been waiting for. Have you ever noticed how certain pains seem to visit you more than others? As if there is an invisible battle going on inside you, even when everything around you seems calm. This spiritual restlessness is not weakness. It is the first sign that you are in the process of awakening. For those chosen by God, discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. It is as if heaven is reshaping you from within, peeling away the old layers to reveal who you truly are. C.S. Lewis said, God cries out in our pain. And it's no wonder. When everything inside us cries out for meaning, it's because we're being called to something greater. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to position you. How many times have you tried to ignore that inner discomfort, and yet it insisted on coming back? That's no coincidence. It's God moving, nudging you with love and firmness. Do you know why you feel this discomfort, even in good times? Because God is speaking, even when no one else is listening. What seems wrong in the outside world may actually be a sign that your spirit is on another level of perception. This inner tension is a reflection of a spiritual transition. You are between what you were and what you are about to be. And that hurts. It hurts to grow. It hurts to change. It hurts to awaken. While many live on autopilot, you feel the weight of the invisible. Why? Because there is a divine promise upon you. And before it can be fulfilled, you need to strengthen your inner structure. That is why discomfort comes before blessing. Before the stage comes the backstage. Before the harvest, the ground needs to be plowed. And God does this first in the heart. This is God's process, silent, intense, necessary. When you feel like an outsider in the place where you've always fit in, it's not you who's wrong. It's your spirit that no longer fits in that space. The world wants to label you, but heaven wants to reveal you. That's why you often feel out of place, misunderstood, and out of place. This is spiritual maturity emerging. Those chosen by God don't follow molds. They are shaped to fulfill a unique purpose. Many ignore this restlessness. They try to silence their souls with distractions. But those who have ears to hear know, God is at work, even when everything seems still. Pain is a kind of secret letter from heaven, saying, I see you. I am preparing you. Believe me, this purposeful suffering is not the end. It is the beginning of something glorious. There is a heavenly calling that only those who have awakened can feel. Have you ever felt this? That feeling that there is something greater waiting for you, even without knowing what it is? If so, comment below, I am a chosen one. Because whoever feels this sacred discomfort is already in motion. And this is the first step towards spiritual alignment with the mission that heaven has reserved just for you. Who has never felt frustrated when seeing a door close right before their eyes? You try hard. You pray. You try. And yet, everything goes wrong. But what if I told you that these closed doors are actually God's silent care? What seems like defeat is often protection in disguise. When something doesn't go the way you wanted, maybe it's because God in control saw what you couldn't. C.S. Lewis said, God allows us to go through hardships, not because He doesn't love us, but because He loves us too much to leave us where we are. When He closes a door, it's not punishment, it's God's direction. It's like a parent stopping a child from crossing a dangerous street, even if the child is crying. Sometimes God stops you from going into places that would take you away from your divine purpose. Maybe you cried because you didn't get that job, that relationship, that move to another city. But now, looking back, you realize, if it had worked out, you would have been far from what was truly meant to be. Those chosen by God are preserved, even without knowing it. And this preservation often comes in the form of a no, of delay, of frustration. God's move is so wise that it protects us even from ourselves. The problem is that we want immediate answers, but God works in His own time. What seems like a delay is actually spiritual preparation. Every door that closes makes it clear heaven has different and better plans. It's not easy to accept this in the heat of loss. But if you can see with the eyes of faith, you'll understand. It wasn't a door that closed. It was heaven pushing you onto the right path. These closed doors are a form of spiritual alignment. It's as if heaven is saying, this isn't it. The best is yet to come. God never takes something away from you without preparing something greater in its place. When you understand this, you begin to wait on God with greater confidence. With each no, you learn to trust that there is a greater promise being fulfilled, even if you don't see it yet. Life's greatest blessings don't come through doors we force. They appear when we learn to discern spiritual signs. Don't insist where God has already withdrawn. God's silence in some environments is a warning. It's over here. And when that happens, don't cry like someone who lost. Celebrate like someone who was promoted. Because those who walk with heaven understand that God is speaking, even when He is silent. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever had a door closed that you later realized was deliverance? Share your story here. Your testimony could be the answer someone is waiting for to finally understand that it wasn't the end. It was the turning point that God used to align you with the destiny He wrote for you from the beginning. Loneliness sometimes comes without knocking. Suddenly, you find yourself far from people, places, and even certainties, and the silence weighs heavily. But what if I told you that this isolation is not abandonment, it is strategy? Those chosen by God are often separated before they are elevated. It is in the desert that faith is honed. It is in silence that the spirit is trained. It is not punishment, it is spiritual preparation. C.S. Lewis believed that God's silence was a way of making us stronger. When everything is silent, it is because heaven is paying attention to your inner self. You are not forgotten, you are under construction. And those who build from within do not need an audience. Heavenly calls usually begin in the invisible, far from the applause, but close to the essence. Maybe you feel like no one understands you, that your pain has no echo. But know this, God is speaking, just in a different way. The absence of external noise is so that you can hear the sound of your soul. And there, deep within, God whispers directions, heals wounds, reveals purposes. It is in this silence that unshakable faith is born, because it does not depend on visible proof, only on an invisible certainty. It is precisely in this place of apparent abandonment that you are being molded. Silence is the environment where God strengthens you for the battles that are yet to come. The world does not see, but heaven knows. What seems like suffering with purpose is, in fact, a stage of spiritual maturity. You are not being forgotten. You are being trained to carry something that many would not bear. Many of those who walk with spiritual authority today have walked through lonely deserts. The absence of companionship has made them warriors. It is not easy, but it is necessary. Those chosen by God first learn to depend solely on God, and then lead others. This is the secret, to be sustained in the invisible before leading in the visible. You may even miss the old you, the times when everything seemed easier. But what God has for you demands a new level. And that includes times when He takes away all the crutches to teach you to walk with Him. God is at work, even when it seems distant. And this silence, as painful as it may seem, is full of love and divine intention. If everything around you has gone silent, perhaps you are hearing the most powerful voice of all. And if that is the case, take a deep breath and accept this truth. You are not alone. You are in training. Heaven knows exactly what it is doing with you. Trust in God's timing. because he never wastes the suffering of those he chooses for something eternal. There are days when pain seems unfair. You pray, do good, seek to live in holiness, but even so, the suffering insists. The soul cries out for relief, and the heart asks, why me? But perhaps the right question is, why not me? Those chosen by God are not spared pain, they are forged by it. Every tear, every fall, every frustration has the weight of eternity when surrendered to God's process. C.S. Lewis reminds us that God whispers in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. Pain, in the lives of the chosen, is like the fire that purifies gold. It is through pain that character is molded, faith is tested, and the spirit matures. What seems like punishment is actually spiritual preparation. And it is not just any preparation. It is for a calling that demands strength, discernment, and courage. Suffering separates you. It takes you from the shallows and takes you to the depths. When everything hurts, you turn to God in a way you wouldn't in times of comfort. It's in this place that an unshakable faith is born, not because you see, but because you keep going even though you don't see. This kind of faith is rare. And because of this, the path of the chosen ones is usually narrower, deeper, but also more glorious. You may not understand it now, but every pain has a purpose. Every fall teaches you to rise stronger. Every no teaches you to value the true yes from heaven. The spiritual signs that appear in the midst of pain are like beacons in the darkness. They don't pull you out of the valley immediately, but they show you that there is a way out. And believe me, you are not being forgotten. You are being aligned with heaven. Most people see suffering as a curse, but those who are awakened, those who are souls, learn to see it as a teacher. It reveals where we are still fragile, where we need to trust more, where God wants to act. Suffering, when surrendered to God, becomes an instrument of healing for you and, in the future, for others. Yes, because everything you experience today will be an answer for someone tomorrow. What hurts you today may be what empowers you to heal tomorrow. Nothing is wasted when you are in the move of God. And when you understand this, you begin to experience suffering with purpose. Not as someone who is defeated, but as someone who is being trained. You are not a victim. You are being prepared, and that changes everything. Heaven has not abandoned you. It is shaping you. If you are hurting, you are not lost. You are being polished. The world may not see it, but heaven is writing history with you. Don't resist the process. Receive it with courage, knowing that God is in control. One day, what makes you cry today will be a reason for gratitude. Because those who cry with faith reap with glory. Few things can unsettle us as much as God's silence. You pray, you fast, you cry out, and heaven seems completely silent. But is God really silent? Or is he simply working in the unseen, while you learn to trust beyond what you see? For those chosen by God, silence is not absence. It is a sacred setting where faith is shaped. C.S. Lewis wrote that there are times when it feels like the gates of heaven have closed, but it is precisely in those moments that faith becomes real. Faith that only works when there are clear signs is not faith, it is dependence. But unshakable faith is born when there is no evidence, only an inner certainty that God is at work, even when everything says otherwise. When God seems silent, he is building behind the scenes. It's like a director setting up the stage before the big performance. You don't see the wires being pulled, the lights being tested, the details being adjusted, but everything is in motion. This is God's process, silent, meticulous, powerful. And those who trust, wait, even without understanding. You need to develop the ability to wait on God, even when the clock screams urgency. Because heaven's timing doesn't align with the world's timing, it aligns with purpose. While you think nothing is happening, God is aligning hearts, shifting pieces, opening invisible pathways. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean he's not working. God in control doesn't need an audience. The great danger is to interpret silence as rejection. But for awakened souls, silence is an invitation to intimacy. It is in this space that you learn to trust without guarantees, to walk without a map, to follow only the compass of faith. And this is precious. God does not want to just give you answers. He wants to teach you to hear the sound of the invisible, to see with the eyes of the soul. What would you do if you knew that heaven is silent only because it is setting the stage, That the wait is not punishment, but spiritual preparation for the exact moment of change. What seems like delay today could be the stage being set for your best. God's move never stops, even if the sound has stopped. There are blessings being built in the silence. So don't despair. If God is silent, He is trusting you. He knows that your faith has matured enough to walk even without a sign. And that is a spiritual compliment, because those who don't need proof are ready for divine revelation. Stay strong. What He is preparing in silence will shout victory when the right time comes. Sometimes the greatest moments in our lives arrive silently, without announcement, without fanfare. Heaven does not send a warning, but it does send signs. And you, lost in the midst of your routine, do not even realize that you are about to experience one of the most important chapters in your story. Those chosen by God usually enter moments of change when everything seems stagnant. It is the paradox of faith. It is when it seems that nothing is happening, that everything is changing. You feel a tightness in your chest, an unnamed anguish, a spiritual restlessness that won't leave you alone. This isn't weakness, it's the harbinger of change. When your inner self begins to move, it's because your outer self is about to be impacted. God's process is like this. He first changes you on the inside, and then changes everything around you. God is at work, even if you haven't noticed it yet. What you call stagnation, heaven calls transition. The seed does not stop growing just because it is hidden underground. And you have not stopped evolving just because the world has not yet seen its fruits. This silent phase may be exactly the ground where God is planting His spiritual harvest. And believe me, when the time is right, it will be impossible not to notice what He is doing in your life. The combination of closed doors, God's silence, and this sense of being moved by something unseen is actually a clear sign. Together, these elements reveal that you are being drawn into spiritual alignment with your mission. Don't underestimate the current discomfort. It carries a prophetic message. You are closer to the turning point than you think. It is when everything seems still that faith is most required. But it is also at this exact point that heaven moves the most. When you have no more strength, when everything loses its shine, when you feel like you have given it your all, that is when God comes in. And He does not come in with crumbs. He comes in with purpose. God in control does not waste time. He only acts when the ground is ready, and your heart may already be at that point. God's timing rarely matches our rush, but it always matches our deepest need. And if you're reading this right now, maybe this is your divine wake-up call. Look at your life with fresh eyes. See beyond the obvious. What's frustrating you today may be the very thing that's pushing you toward your divine promise. Don't fight it. Embrace the process. If you feel this way, write here in the comments, I accept the process. Because accepting is not giving up. It is trusting. It is recognizing that what comes from God requires surrender, even without guarantees. And when you say yes to the invisible, the visible begins to change. You are not standing still. You are in spiritual gestation. And soon, very soon, the world will see what God is already seeing in you. Not everyone will understand your path, and that's okay. God's chosen ones are not called to follow the crowd, but to obey heaven's direction. There is a kind of loneliness that accompanies those who hear the heavenly call. The feeling of not fitting in, of thinking differently, of feeling what others ignore. This is not a flaw, it is an identity. You have been set apart for something greater, and this naturally sets you apart from the ordinary. C.S. Lewis said that we should follow our conscience even if it leads us against the world. He knew that truth is rarely found in crowds, and spiritual truth is even less so. When you feel the weight of going against the grain, remember, Jesus was also rejected, misunderstood, criticized, but He was fulfilling an eternal purpose. And the chosen follow this same pattern. They walk with heaven, even when it isolates them on earth. Have you ever noticed how some of your choices generate sideways glances, veiled comments, and judgments? This happens because you are responding to God's direction, and not everyone can see it. Many people live guided by social approval, but the chosen ones live guided by divine revelation. Don't expect everyone to understand. They don't need to. What matters is that you are aligned with what heaven is asking for. Saying yes to the calling often means saying no to almost everything the world has to offer. And that takes courage. It's not easy to give up comfort, applause, and validation. But when you understand that you are being guided by a divine purpose, sacrifice becomes seed, and seed always brings harvest. What seems like sacrifice today will be reward tomorrow, because God honors those who obey even when they are alone. The most interesting thing is that, over time, what seemed like madness begins to make sense. The pieces fit together, the fruits appear, peace sets in, and you realize, walking with God is always worth it. Even if the path is narrow, even if they call you different. Awakened souls recognize they are not lost. They are exactly where they need to be. Here's the truth. Not everyone will understand your faith. And that's okay. You weren't chosen to please. You were called to obey. This obedience is proof of your maturity, your confidence, your spiritual identity. If you try to fit in everywhere, you'll miss out on what heaven wants to release exclusively for you. And it's not worth trading a divine promise for a moment of human acceptance. So if you feel like you're going against the grain, stay strong. You're not wrong. You're being led by something bigger. Keep listening to that still, small voice within you. God's move isn't always loud, but it's sure. And those who follow this call are the ones who make their mark on generations. You're one of them. If C.S. Lewis were here today, looking down on this generation searching for meaning in the midst of chaos, he wouldn't speak religiously. He would speak truthfully. He would remind us that God never promised comfort, but divine purpose. That being one of God's chosen is not about having an easy life, but about having a meaningful life. And that the pain we feel today is the same pain that shaped giants of faith. One of his most powerful quotes is, "Christ did not die to make you comfortable, but complete." And that is precisely what many forget. God's process is meant to form, transform, realign. And it hurts. But it is pain with direction, suffering with purpose. Lewis would say that the soul that suffers and yet chooses to trust is on the right path, in God's move. Lewis did not romanticize faith. He saw it as a spiritual battlefield. He knew that those who are called to something greater will inevitably face spiritual trials. But he would also show us that pain is not the end of the line. It is only the beginning. Spiritual restlessness, God's silence, the closed door, all of these, he said, are divine instruments of refinement. He would encourage us to look to the invisible, to seek not only answers, but revelations. He would speak about the importance of unshakable faith, of the trust that remains even when the ground seems to disappear. For him, suffering would be the setting where great encounters with the sacred are born, and each tear, an unspoken prayer, but heard. Because yes, God is acting, even when he is silent. If he could write a letter to today's awakened souls, Lewis might say, "Don't be surprised when it's hard. Be surprised when it's too easy. Because comfort dulls the soul, while pain awakens the spirit. And the chosen ones are precisely those who can find light even in the darkness. They are the ones who see God working, even when everything seems to be falling apart." He would remind us that our journey is not about performance, but about surrender. That a broken heart is worth more than a perfect facade. That we are not alone in this process, and that every desert has hidden manna. Lewis believed that suffering leads us to our truest selves. And perhaps that is why it resonates so strongly with those going through spiritual transition. Which quote by C.S. Lewis resonated with you the most? Share it in the comments. Sometimes, a simple phrase is all someone needs to not give up. May your pain not be in vain. May it be the gateway to your purpose. Because if you are here, reading this to the end, it is because God is speaking to you, softly but powerfully, and only the chosen ones can hear it. Have you noticed how each difficult phase of your life carries hidden signs? Every silence, every closed door, every night you cried in silence. Maybe it was exactly heaven preparing you for something that your eyes could not yet see. God's process does not always make sense at the beginning, but it transforms everything in the end. And that end may be closer than you think. Now that you have recognized these signs, the question is, what will you do about it? Will you ignore your soul's restlessness once again? Or will you finally accept that there is a heavenly calling upon you? That this pain is not punishment, it is spiritual preparation. That this waiting is not delay, it is God's timing, molding you to perfection. And that this silence is not absence, it is strategy. Reflect. Are you ready to answer the call? Or are you still trying to fit in where heaven has already taken you? Maybe this is the time to turn the key. to stop running after what the world values and start walking in what heaven has already released for you. It is time to align your life with the divine purpose. And this begins with a simple yes, a yes that changes everything. If this message spoke to your soul, comment below with the word signs. That way, I know you've heard the call and you're ready for the next step. And of course, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave your like. Here, each video is a compass for souls who don't just want to survive, but to live with meaning, faith, and direction.